We head live to Washington for the final day of campaigning ahead of tomorrow's decisive midterm elections in the United States. Votes that will determine whether the Democrats keep control of Congress and potentially much more. Magda Gabriel-Salasay with us live this morning. Magda, the U.S. President Joe Biden back at the White House in Washington this morning after a big campaign swing, and his predecessor was out as well for the Republicans. So what are the closing messages from both parties?
Well, really what we've been seeing is top Democrats have been sticking to that message that democracy is at stake here, while top Republicans have been focusing on some of the top issues for voters, including the economy, blaming the party in power for concerns around inflation and other issues, including crime, border issues, that sort of thing. Now, what we know with these midterms is with Congress, you've got 35 of the Senate seats that are up for grabs and all 435 seats in the House. This time around, Republicans are expected to win the House, but there are some key races to watch for the Senate, whether that's Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania. But last night, Biden was actually in New York trying to help the governor there stay in power. But for everyone across the country, he had this message about democracy, again saying that it is on, essentially on the ballot, and that this is an election of a lifetime. Take a listen.
One of those inflection points, I mean it sincerely, where what's going to happen the next couple years is going to have more to do with what this country looks like 20 years from now than anything else.
So we've heard him talk before about the concern around election deniers that are running in various levels of this midterms. But the fact is, the big lie of a stolen election, well, that continues to get former President Donald Trump's supporters out. And he was out, of course, on Sunday in Miami, trying to get support for Senator Marco Rubio's reelection there, while also calling on the crowd to back up his other so-called Make America Great Again candidates.
You're going to elect an incredible slate of true MAGA warriors to Congress, many of whom are here right now. I think are all here. We need a landslide so big that the radical left cannot rig it or steal it.
So the integrity of elections taking much of the spotlight. But, Heather, really, depending on what the candidates are, where they stand, they clearly define it differently.
Magda, this is the first national U.S. election since the January 6th attack on Congress. And as you've been reporting, the recent attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband has certainly heightened fears of election violence. What can you tell us about that and what they're doing to try to ensure safety and security tomorrow?
Yeah, well, we've been hearing concerns about election security for some time now. Really, essentially, after the 2020 election, there were a lot of election officials saying that they were facing harassment and threats of violence, and those concerns have continued. Also, there have been rising concerns about voter intimidation as well. And just remember, last week we had an Arizona judge that told one group they can't have their guns out and approach voters near ballot boxes. Now you have cameras in some of these election polls stations. You have security in others. And in Georgia, if anyone sees trouble, they're now being told to use an elections app to report it. And then in Michigan, the Secretary of State there says they're going to have more people out in the field to try to prevent any problems. Take a listen.
Our priority is making sure that just as our elections always have been safe and secure and accessible to all, that they will be again on Tuesday. We have folks who are prepared to immediately respond to anyone who tries to intimidate any voters.
So that's what's being done to boost security. But as for election results, even after the polls close, with all those mail-in ballots, we might not know the results for days, Heather.
Going to be an interesting week and looking forward to it with you, Magda. Thank you very much. Magda Gabriel-Salasay is in Washington.